Welcome. In this case, we would understand the real interest rate and its changes in case of loanable market fund. So when we draw the loanable market fund, the first thing we understand is the real interest rate, and that is nominal interest rate minus the inflation, or the nominal interest rate is real interest rate plus inflation, vice versa, as you can understand. Now, what is the demand for loan? Who would demand loan? Now, loans can be demanded either by the consumers. Consumers can want loan for their routine purpose, or for mortgage, or for health, for some other reason. For businesses, it would be in the form of business loans, and for government, it would be in the form of bonds, right? So there is a curve that we can draw for the demand that can be drawn. So this is the real interest rate versus the quantity of loanable funds, and this would draw the aggregate demand. Now this demand curve is for what? This demand curve is for consumers, businesses and government in the form of loans, mortgage, bonds, as we discussed. The next is the supply curve. So here I have the aggregate supply curve. Now, when I have the supply and the demand curve, not the aggregate, okay. So I have the supply and the demand curve here. Now this is the point of equilibrium, right? I changed the color here. Now, what is the first situation? The first situation is a surplus situation. In this case, my interest rate increases from 1 to 2. But what is there? I have more supply and less demand. So we call this as a situation of surplus. So surplus is a situation where I have, surplus is a situation where I have supply greater than demand, and in that case what would happen? My interest rate would increase. Since I have more supply than the demand, people are ready to give loan, but the other end, people are not willing to take the loans. The reason is the interest rate is higher. So I am happy to keep my money in my deposits. I am not ready to take a loan against it. Now what happened? What the company does is, what the bank does is, it decreases the interest rate. Credit card company or any other instrument who is lending the loan reduces the interest rate. So my interest rate shifts from 1 to 3. My interest rate declines. Now when my interest rate declines, I am a small company, you are a small company, every one of us would want to take loan, okay? But the reason is the cheap loans are available. So cheaper loans are available here. Everyone wants to take at 0%, 0.1%. Why not take that? So demand becomes more than supply. Everyone is demanding the loan, but the companies who are supplying it are getting short of it or squeezed. So this is what is called as shortage, right? So in this case, the interest rate would, the real interest rate would decline. Now, real interest rate is declining and people are ready to get cheap loans, right? So this is a very important concept that you need to understand for a loanable fund market. Now, what would happen during the time of recession? Now, during the time of recession, I am not ready to invest, right? So the demand in the market actually falls down. Now, since the demand falls down, this was the supply line. So this was my interest rate, and my interest rate would decline because the demand is actually falling because of a recessionary cycle. However, during an inflation, what would happen? It would go up, and when it would go up, there would be more demand that would be there. So in an inflationary cycle, sorry, I'll have to draw it again, okay. So in an inflationary cycle, what would happen? This was my original demand and supply curve. Now this is my new demand curve. So my demand curve has increased during an inflation, but at the same time the interest rate has increased because more people are looking for it, and therefore the companies have increased the interest rate as well. So the loanable fund market is a very interesting study to understand how funds are actually released into the market, and this helps you to also understand the macroeconomic structure in a more detailed fashion. So usually when you have questions pertaining to loanable fund markets in macroeconomics, this is one of the common things that is usually taken into consideration. So the interest rate would increase when, and when would the interest rate fall? So interest rate would increase only in the circumstances when people are putting the money in their bank, there is surplus. Supply is more than demand. Interest rate would fall when there is shortage, that is, the demand is more than the supply. And this would be the case where you would be getting or providing cheap loans. So this is a very basic concept that you must be familiar with. We would be discussing many such problems, and the complete video course is available in the description below. Thanks for joining in.